Alrighty, Mac users. So I've got VS Code that you can use for this class. And you'll also be able to use VS Code for most of our 195 class. But when we get to Razor Pages, which is a framework, Mac users are going to run into a problem because there is no back-end database on a Mac, and on a PC there is. So I believe there is a workaround for it, but it is pretty complicated. So, unless you are pretty computer savvy, your life would be 100% easier using a PC for any of the applications that have the backend database. But I'm going to show you how to use VS Code because this is not too bad. So I think you all would be able to do this without any issues. So first thing you're going to do is download it. I'm going to download your Mac version. And then when you install it, you do need to make sure it goes into your app folder. I made the mistake of not installing into the app folder, and it did not work properly. So make sure you get it in your app folder. Otherwise, it ends up being on the cloud, and that is an issue. After you get it installed, there are some extensions that you are going to have to install as well. The C# development kit is one of them, and also the SDK, the system development kit. But because we are using .NET and C#, I just recommend installing all of the .NET and C# extensions, because then you will not have any issues. To help familiarize yourself with VS Code, I did include a link to some videos. And there's really about, and this obviously is trying to download the software, so I'm going to cancel. But the videos, like the first 5, are pretty useful. We use VS Code for web development. So everything that you learn in these videos, you can apply to the 180 course in addition to this course. But basically, this just shows you kind of how to use VS Code, how to configure platforms, how to interact with the user interface. And so if you are in VS Code and you have any questions at all, watch the videos because I do think they will help you. And I'm going to go ahead and open up my VS Code. I think one of the first things you're probably going to want to do is install a theme. So over on the left, we have some commands, and the command that you need for extensions is right here. And I should point out that when you first come in here, you should see Explorer. And if you don't, you can just click on this button, and then your window would look very similar to mine. But you probably aren't seeing some of these commands because you haven't installed C# yet. Over on the right are shortcuts that kind of come in handy if you can remember the key codes or keystrokes. On the left, the extensions is probably the first place that you're going to go. And you're going to want to key in theme. Press enter. And some of you like light themes, some of you like dark themes. So you can actually prefix it with what your preference is. I personally like light themes, but you could look, I know a lot of you like dark themes, so you can enter dark theme, and then you can kind of take a look, and it should show you an example of how this is going to look when it installs. And so you can simply find one that you like and hit install. And if at some time if you don't want it anymore, once you install it, you can uninstall. Okay, so that's probably one of the first things you're going to want to do. Next thing, you're going to look for everything related to C#. And here's the development kit that they're going to tell you to install. And you can see I have installed mine. Okay, so it says uninstall. Here's base language support for C#, which I also installed. So I did a search on C#. If it says deprecated, do not install it because that means it's outdated. But otherwise, a lot of these extensions are useful. Okay, so I went ahead and installed quite a few of them. And then you're also going to want to look for .NET because we are running on the .NET framework. And so I would install pretty much everything for .NET as well. And you can see that I have all of these installed. And at any time, if you decide that you don't want something installed, you can just uninstall it. And if you don't want to install a bunch of stuff, you can just install the minimum. And then if you need something that you don't have, VS Code should tell you. Okay, so there are quite a few extensions. And you can see I don't have them all installed. I mean, I kind of went down to this editor, and you can see that's kind of where I stopped. I did include this one. Okay, but you can kind of see the ones that I've installed, and I'll go back and show you for C# what I did. And I have actually quite a few things installed because I do use this for different classes. Okay, but you can see I did not install this one. See how it's crossed out because there was a newer version which I installed. And if you're not familiar with snippets, they're kind of nice. They're little chunks of code that it'll insert for you. Okay, so that's basically what I installed. Now we're going to go back out here and take a look. So once you install all of this, it'll probably say something like welcome Visual Studio Code. And then as you look through these screens, you'll probably see something, like getting started with .NET. And you will need the systems development kit. This is the best way to find it and install it. Some of the websites have links to the website where you can download. I did that several times and I installed it and it did not connect with VS Code. When I did it this way and I clicked on this link, everything worked perfectly. And to verify that you have it installed, they even give you a little terminal command that you can use. So it's .NET -- version. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and go back into VS Code. And unfortunately, if you are coding C#, you are going to have to use the terminal commands. That is basically a huge disadvantage from using Visual Studio Community because they don't have to do terminal commands, and you guys do. But you can see here's terminal, and we can open up the terminal window, and I can key in the command .NET. It was -- version. Oops. Of course, it helps if you key it in right. Okay, and this is the version that I have installed. Okay, and if you come in here and you think you've installed it, and you key this in and you don't see anything, that means you don't have it installed. Okay, so you should go through extensions and try to get everything installed. Once you've done that, then you are ready to kind of create a simple little console app and test this out to make sure that it works. And for that, we are going to select create a .NET Console app in VS Code. The most current version is .NET 8, not very many differences between .NET 8, .NET 7, and .NET 6, especially for what we're doing. Okay? You're not going to find very many differences at all. But since .NET 8 is the most current, that is what we are going to use. Okay, so again, they're saying you need the C# extension installed, you need the dev kit, you need the .NET 8 SDK. Okay, and so hopefully you have all of that installed. And if you don't, you're going to have to go back into VS Code and get it installed. Now it's going to walk you through creating a new project. So I'm going to display this side by side with VS Code. Oops. Okay. And we're just going to kind of walk through this. So it's got file, open, folder. It wants you to select a folder for where your code is going to be stored. And so what I kind of recommend is like you may want to put it in documents. And you may even want to create a 110 folder like I did. Okay, and you should be able to use, your menu commands to do that. Okay, so this is Finder. I believe it opened, but you can just create a new folder, clicking the button and key it whatever you want. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the folder for this class and open it. And you can see I've done a couple things in here already. And when it creates a project, it actually creates several different folders and files. And the file with the code in it is called program.cs. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and follow the directions here. I opened my folder. Let's see. Oh, but it wants us to create a Hello World folder. Oops, so I'm going to go back in here. I do not need to do that. Okay, let me see if I right click over here, new folder. And so now I'm going to key Hello World. Okay, so if you're already in VS Code and you don't see the open folder anymore, you certainly can do what I just did, right? Right click, new folder. You can do a new file. You can do a new C# file, and it's got all sorts of different file types in here too. Okay, so I called the folder Hello World. Okay, and so this is where I'm at so far. Now we need to open the terminal. And this is why I said this is a little bit harder on the Macs because you are using VS Code. So when you create, a new project in Visual Studio, it generates all of the files you need, but it does not do that in VS Code. Every single thing that you need, you have to key in a command for. So we're going to come up here. Select that again. I'm going to go to Terminal and New Terminal. And now I have to add the .NET framework. So .NET, this is a new console application. The framework that we are using is basically .NET 8. And the starting point for execution is going to be the main method. So that's why it's got use program name. So I'm going to be lazy and copy this. Click here, and I am going to do Command V to paste. And then I'm going to press enter or return. And so once it finishes, now you actually should have hopefully more, maybe not. Let me see. That does appear to have worked. Okay, here's my program CS file. Okay, so all of this is associated with it now. Here's my program CS file. This is not working.